I'm Mara Childs, and we have Eli Ulmer in front. So Eli and I recently, we talked a lot about anti-bullying in honor of October being anti-bullying month. And we did work on a resolution, but to kind of give you a backstory for how we arrived at this resolution, we'd like to share with you some things that we have learned and that we know about bullying in schools. To begin, I'd just like to talk about reasons for bullying in kids a lot. You know, it starts with most kids have a low self-esteem, or many secretly do. It comes from sort of a human desire for validation, and in kids that comes through, we call it wanting to be good enough for people. People are always saying, well, we have to be good enough to get into college, you have to be good enough for your parents, you have to be friends with these people. And it comes out in things, something that I like to call academic scarring. And you know, as someone, I'm tied first in my class right now, and even for like the top 3 of us, we all have a 4.0. You know, if someone slips to a 3.9, we'll be like, oh my God, we might be the top forever, you know? And it's just, it's almost animalistic in our need to be the best at everything. And that comes out in social status and popularity as well, because we find that different social groups, as people sort of tend to collect themselves into different, you know, adults call them cliques, but we don't like that word as kids. Different groups definitely have sort of different statuses or just a popularity level that is just sort of innate within all members of the group. And then we see some kids that don't feel like they belong in those groups. If you're not a leader of a group and you're trying to blindly follow a group so you have that popularity, we find a lot of social insecurity in just many teenagers throughout high school, and even begins as early as middle school. And from these groups, trying to stay in these groups, we see peer pressure, because leaders, strong leaders of groups, will tell other people, or not even explicitly tell them, but hint at them to do things or say things to other people, or they can't do this, and just kind of control their life, which is a form of peer pressure that will keep them in that group. But as it's said, it's better to not fit into a group of high popularity than to fit into a group of low popularity. And then from this, we see a lot of unintentional participation in bullying, because people will do things with a group of kids that they don't really see as bullying. Maybe they don't know that it happens every single day to them. They just know it was a one-time occurrence. Or they don't say anything about it. They know that their friends are being mean to this one person and they don't say anything. That's another form of unintentional participation. And unfortunately, all of these, no matter who it is or how they are participating or not, it affects everyone.
All right, so like Mark said, bullying doesn't just involve the bully and the victim. There are obviously other students that witness this, and that brings an impact to the 3 groups. Everyone at school feels the effects of bullying. Basically, you have the aggressor, the bully, who is creating this sort of tension in the school environment. You have the victim, who obviously, you know, is receiving this aggression. And then you have the other kids that aren't necessarily a part of it, but they're viewing this aggression, and it may make them feel like they will become a target, or that their friends could become targets, or just not a safe environment. And that can cause attendance issues. It can, you know, it can distract them. I know it used to, when I was younger and I witnessed bullying, it just made me feel really alone. And it, you know, you can view feelings of stress and anxiety among kids, definitely. And that leads into other types of bullying, like on Facebook and stuff, and Mara will talk a little bit about that now.
Yeah, one of our driving factors, including kids in the resolution, is that the way in which kids are interacting with each other is changing so quickly. And I know it's sometimes difficult for adults to keep up with just the way that they can deal with new sites that come up every day. So one of the major form of bullying that we see in today's society and teenagers is cyberbullying. Recently, something that has sprung up probably prolifically all over the place are these called anonymous question sites. There's one of the largest ones being used is called Ask FM, or there's another older one from a couple that came up a couple years ago called FormSpring. And what this is it's a page that allows each user to have a wall where people can anonymously ask them questions, and then they publish a response that can be viewed by everyone. So when you think about this, like letting teenagers anonymously tell things to other people that they can then answer, obviously that's kind of a recipe for bullying, because you have kids saying, well, why did you do this, or why are you so ugly and stuff, and it's harmless, like if someone dares them to say it, it really has an impact on the kids. I've seen kids that they leave school, they don't come back to school because of the bullying that's happening, not even at school, but it's all on your phone. With this, we see Facebook, people can make fake friend accounts and impersonate another person and bully them through there. Just direct messages, and even just talking to people through pages and stuff happens on Facebook. Twitter brings us the infamous subtweet. If you aren't familiar with the subtweet, or if you aren't familiar with Twitter, it allows you to send out little updates in 140 characters or less. But the subtweet is something that I think teenage girls have pretty much mastered as well. It's tweeting something like, "Dang, you are so annoying," but you don't attach a name to it, but if the person that you're directing this to sees it, they know it's for them. Like, trust me, they know. And that's one of the worst forms of bullying, because you're not even owning up to the fact that you're talking about someone, you're just setting it out for everyone to see. So of course, there's also texts and IMs, which are all just direct contact with another person, which has always been one of the forms of bullying. Girls especially brings us to another form of bullying that happens a lot in the high schools. It's called girl culture bullying, and we see girls kind of have a lack of a physical outlet. Sometimes in schools, the fights that usually happen are between boys. They're the ones that are quick to throw each other to the ground. So for girls, we kind of, I don't know if it's like just feeling proper, but we like to keep our bullying subtle. It's usually in verbal ways, or just in passing. A certain look can have a very harsh effect. The famous movie Mean Girls, sure, it over-dramatizes that world of, I guess, girl fighting and just manipulation that happens, but it all is rooted in a very, very true social system that happens every day in our schools. So of course, if there's one thing that I learned from my English class, you have to have text with page numbers to make anything valid. So I read Queen Bees and Wannabes by Ruskin Wiseman, which is a great read. I would recommend it if you haven't read it. And I picked two quotes that kind of illustrate just the truth behind girls and their meanness. The first kind of talks about how easy it is to disguise your bullying, because gossiping is a form of bullying. You're talking about others. And girls will pretend they're venting or getting advice, like saying just something like, would you do this? And then say a specific incident that someone obviously did a few days before is a very easy way to target people. And then this, when a girl leaves one group for another, this kind of goes back to wanting to feel good enough. A long time ago, being rejected from a group of humans would probably mean death. So that's the instinctual need to belong to a group comes from that. But in girls, we just say they're stuck up or fake because we reject them back. If we get rejected, we'll just reject them back, saying, well, I didn't want to be friends with you anyways, because we want to feel good enough for ourselves. Luckily, it is not the old days, and you won't die if you're rejected by a group of people. So there are ways that bullying can be prevented.
I think all bullying if not all bullying can be prevented with knowledge. Teaching of equality and respect for one another at a younger age, I think, is the most important. But I'll talk about that more on the next slide. Focusing on, so the visible outcome, you have someone that's insecure or, not comfortable, and if that person has a dominant personality, then they're going to become the bully. But really, you have multiple groups you got to think about here, because I feel bad for the bully just as much as the victim sometimes, because that bully is transferring negative energy either from home or from a different area of life into that person at school, where we all see it. So I would say that one of the best things we can do, or a school can do as a group, community, for helping a bullying issue, is to focus on the root. Focus on, a student's home life and what you could possibly do to help ease some of that negative a negative attention. And helping young adults accept each other is also going to be more conducive to a comfortable and a more safe-feeling environment. And that leads me into gaining social skills at a young age. I was doing some reading on this from one of the links partner sent me a while back, and one of the pieces that I really liked was when you teach kids social skills at a young age, it allows for, like, on the bottom slide, I know that says, other students see the signs of bullying and react positively. That doesn't mean to react positively to bullying, but react positively in a negative situation. And teaching students good ways to cope with each other and good ways of social function at a younger age will allow them to make better decisions as they grow up in the high school environment. Basically, students are what we need to empower to help make this difference in schools regarding bullying. Students have the power.
Like Eli said, and like we both recognized, realize that students, being like the most populated group at a school, do hold the most weight in changing something that is directly involving all of us. So for students and solutions, which was what we looked at mainly when drafting the resolution, we saw that it was up to students really to change the culture at a school by changing their own behaviors. And so by giving them the early social development that allows them to foster a community that is going to be, a positive climate where kids want to be, is really where we're going to see bullying end. One of the easiest ways to do this, but also the hardest way to do this, is influencing your friend group first. Student leaders talk a lot about changing with yourself and then telling your friends, like, that's not cool, like, start with something easy. But, again, back to the social groups, like, you don't want to be seen as, like, the uncool or, like, a buzzkill if you're all having fun, making fun of something. But as we all know, that's not so much fun. You see a lot of movements coming, like Choose Love, which is a movement by someone named Houston Craft, great guy. He's a motivational speaker who focuses on agape, which is unconditional love. And basically, his idea is that you can love everyone unconditionally because they are human, but you don't have to like them. And so a lot of student leaders that are involved in WASC and just across the country even are becoming aware of this. And I've seen a positive change in our schools since we adopted something called servant leadership, which is, at least in the Northwest, driven by someone named John Norland. And it focuses on the servant's heart and the leadership model in The Servant by James C. Hunter. And that, again, is back to the idea of unconditional love and how we can use this in our schools to make that positive climate. And we see ideas through WASC and Inner Highs and the Justin's Conference, where high schoolers from around the state come together through the great network of Washington student leaders, and we focus on ways how can we put unconditional love into our everyday actions that show the kids at our school that we really care about them. So student participation in actively combating bullying and just being everyday members of a community that is going to understand that bullying is not okay is the most important thing that we can teach kids, and having student participation that's positive is the most important thing that we can do for our schools. In terms of things like technology, kids are usually ahead of the game on this stuff. We've got all the latest apps downloaded. We know just how to use them, and we know how to use them to our advantage usually. So the resolution that we drafted encourages student involvement with the anti-bullying policies that schools are required to make. Since we know that students have the most weight and seem to know the most about forms of bullying, or at least the ways in which we go about bullying people, and usually kids do know who's doing the bullying, it would make sense that to change a climate and to change policies in schools that affect kids, you would want to